get to work with. Welcome, everyone. We'll get started in just a couple minutes here. Awesome. Some Lake Washington rep today. I'm presenting from Portland today.
Same.
Portland gang, Beaverton gang, there we go. Spanaway, Seattle, Puyallup,
Vancouver.
Sweet, just across the river. Kenmore. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. Once again, my name is Joe Johnson, he, him. I'm an Associate Director of Admissions for Lawrence University. I'm joined today by some fantastic colleagues who are going to introduce themselves, and then we'll get started with our presentation today.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shaylor. I go by she, her pronouns. I am an admissions counselor for the University of Nevada, Reno. I'm based in Sacramento, but I do cover the state of Washington.
I already mentioned myself, but I work specifically with students here in the Northwest and on the West Coast, and I'm remotely located in Portland, Oregon.
My name is Ryan Wegerson. I use pronouns she, her, hers, and I'm the Regional Admissions Manager for Cal Poly up here in the Pacific Northwest. I'm based out of Portland, but I work with students in Oregon, Washington, and Idaho.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nian Quach from the University of New Hampshire, she, her as well. I am based in Tacoma for UNH and covering the West Coast. Excited to see you all today. Thank you for being here with us.
So let's kick off today's presentation. Basically, the agenda for the day. First, we already did our introductions, but we're going to break up this presentation for the year ahead, your senior year timeline, into different chunks to make sure that you can think about it in terms of the calendar year, what you can be doing now, next month, a few months and a few weeks from now, to really start planning out your year. First, we'll talk about late summer, early fall, things you can be doing right now before school's even started. Or for those of you whose school is starting in just a couple of days, you can start working on that right now. Late fall, winter, moving into December, April, once you've finished the application process or finishing it up, you'll start hearing back from colleges, information about making those decisions. And then May through August, getting ready to join the community that you'll be calling home. We'll do a brief overview of each of our colleges at the end so that you can learn a little bit more about some schools that you may not have heard of before. And then we'll take some time for questions and Q&A at the end. So you'll notice we have this little icon in the corner, some mountains and the word ARROW. If you haven't looked us up yet, ARROW stands for the Association for Regional Representatives of Oregon and Washington. We are members who are college admissions officers. We're regionally located and live somewhere in the Northwest, but basically it means that we work for institutions and live away from the institution. So we work and live regionally or remotely. You can check out this QR code, which will take you to admissionsarrow.com, where you can learn about the nearly 50 member colleges and universities that we have and find your local admissions representative. As we mentioned, we are your local admissions representatives for our institutions. You can find so many more colleges on our website. Now, one of the first things to be thinking about as you're looking ahead for the year is to be planning and forming your college list. You may have been doing a little bit of this already throughout the last year or couple years. If you've already been visiting colleges, sometimes families have started those conversations earlier on during your time in high school. But remember that there are over 2,300 different four-year colleges and universities in the United States. That's not even counting international, that's just in the United States. So there is going to be a place that you can call home. In fact, there's probably going to be multiple places that you'd be able to call home. So remember that you have options. There are so many schools out there. Because of that, it can often be a little overwhelming to narrow down, okay, well, which one is really going to be the best fit for me? One of the helpful ways to do that is paying attention to accreditation. We'll start thinking about some other tips and questions to consider a little bit later. But make sure you're also starting this a little bit early too. This is the perfect time if you haven't already started building your college list right now, this week, this month. Start thinking about the colleges that you're interested in, or that you've never heard of that you might be interested in. And of course, sometimes there's anxiety, there's stress, there's some of those negative emotions that get brought up in this college search. Don't pay attention to those. Pay attention to the positive emotions. Pay attention to the excitement. Pay attention to the ability for you to look forward to the next 4 years of your life, the next chapter of your life. That's what this is all about, finding a home for yourself. Don't get bogged down in the stress and the anxiety and the details. Keep thinking about what's going to help move you forward. Now, here are some guiding questions to help you really start to think about what kind of college is going to fit you best. It's important that we talk about that word fit, because you don't necessarily, it may not be in your best interest to just go where all your friends are going, or just go where your parents went, and maybe where they want you to go too. It's important to find a place that is going to serve your academic needs, that's going to provide the opportunities and ways to engage a community that you're looking for, and that is going to help you achieve your college and career goals in the community that you want to be part of. So some of these guiding questions include: first, public, private, or proprietary. Proprietary meaning for-profit. Those are institutions that they're designed to make money, not necessarily the same mission that public and private colleges have of educating their students from a mission-driven place. Another question is, where do you want to live? Do you want to stay here in the Northwest? We've got so many Western Washington folks and some Portland and Beaverton folks watching today. Is that where you want to go to college? Is that where you want to stay and potentially work? Or would you like to see another part of the country? Would you like to travel? Would you like to meet different people who have different perspectives, who've grown up in different environments? That's a great guiding question for yourself. Obviously, college is about academics. It's about finding a great academic fit. So what fields of study interest you? And not just what do you want to major in, the question that everyone is going to ask you at holiday gatherings, or what are you going to do after college, but really thinking about, what are you passionate about? What interests you? What classes do you want to explore more? Even if you don't know if there's a major or a minor or a program for that, start thinking about those pieces that are important to you. What size of college or university is important to you? Do you want to be part of a huge institution, or do you want to be more tight-knit community? What are you looking for? What type of student profile is going to be best for you? And this is not just the academic profile of who gets in where, but what kind of students do you want to be around? What other values do you have, and how do you want those to align with the community you're a part of? That's another important piece to be thinking about. Are there other factors that are important to you? I encourage you to write some of these down, start thinking about this. If you're starting to build your college list, make a column in a spreadsheet for each of those core values that you're looking for in your ideal college. That's really going to help you navigate this next step. And finally, we put it last, but it is a very important one, is what's affordable for you. However, I encourage you to not discount colleges and universities that maybe have an expensive price tag, especially out-of-state colleges or private colleges, because you actually won't know what you'll pay for that college until you go through the process. So the price tag can sometimes be misleading, but make sure that you're providing a balanced list of colleges for you. Here are some great tools to help you navigate these next steps of building that college list and preparing for your college search and application process. We are all going to be traveling around this fall, visiting your high schools, attending college fairs, including the NACAC National College Fair, which will be in Seattle. That will be the big one. We also have another one in Spokane this fall. The PNACAC Regional Fairs. PNACAC is similar to NACAC. It's a national, NACAC is national, PNACAC is regional, just for the Pacific Northwest. And they put on these college fairs and other college access programming. We'll have a regional fair in Portland this fall. We'll have a regional fair as well in Boise, and we'll have some other regional fairs throughout the I-5 corridor in Oregon and Western Washington. There's some great websites: Big Future, My College Options, Scholar Matcher, Princeton Review, College Scorecard. You may have heard of some other ones like the FISC Guide for colleges. There's tons and tons of resources out there. ones that we didn't list here, your school counselor will probably know about. Make sure that if you haven't connected with your school counselor or your college and career counselor at your school, take some time, send them an email, set up a meeting with them if they haven't set one up with you already for this year, and chat about your future. They're going to be able to help you make some great decisions and build a balanced college list. With that, I'll pass it over to one of my colleagues here.
So now we're going to walk through a little bit more in detail what we would recommend you're doing throughout this process, specifically in the fall in your senior year. So thinking about August and September, so we're already essentially halfway through August. So we have about maybe a month and a half for these recommendations to take place or to think about them. First is to consider if you're going to be taking that SAT or that ACT. I know that it's a big question, especially because so many universities are test optional or they're test blind, or ultimately they use the tests in much different ways than they were pre-COVID. It could be worth it to definitely still be taking that test. Some universities still use test scores for placement into courses. They might use test scores for their scholarship process. So if you find that that's worthy to you, it's definitely something you want to start looking into and taking that test if you have not already. We do have a resource here on the screen where you can look up what universities are test optional or test free to be a little bit more transparent about what that could look like. This may be helpful to consider once you have that college list, like Joe was describing, knowing what the colleges that you are applying to are looking for, especially in regards to test scores, could really influence whether you're taking a test or not. So that might be a little bit personal. Just keep that in mind. It's definitely something to still consider throughout this process. Another big one is definitely going to be visiting the college you are interested in person. Maybe this is happening before you officially add it onto your college list. Sometimes it's great to visit and then you recognize right then and there, you know what? This actually isn't the college for me and I'm not going to be applying. But also after you applying, that really helps build and establish relationships with that admissions office, with everyone on campus as well. So something to definitely look into, if not doing other things, visiting a college campus, I think, is usually the #1 recommendation that most admissions counselors give. It really puts you in that position of picturing yourself on campus and getting a full vibe and feel for the location and for what student life is like on campus as well. Do take a look at what specific visit options universities are offering. Sometimes it's more of an open house with presentations. Other times it could be more of that individualized, you're doing a more personal walking tour, or maybe there's other larger programs to attend. So definitely always check in with that admissions counselor for the university you're looking into to see what kind of options they have, especially for schools that are further away. Maybe there's some sort of visit or fly-in options. Not saying that's always the case, but it's definitely something worthy of asking about. And then again, as Joe mentioned, your school or college counselor is a phenomenal resource. It's really hard to keep track of deadlines and when everything's due and what you need to be doing. And of course, the process does become very overwhelming. They're there to help guide you through the process. They've guided students before you, so they do have a general understanding and a really great subset of knowledge about this process. So absolutely use them as a resource, as well as your admissions counselors as well. And then finally, do keep in mind, this is a lot for August through September, but these are all very pertinent to do a little bit earlier on in the process. Finalizing those essays. It's really nice to have this out of the way so you're not worrying last minute, the night of the deadline. You have it in place, you have your rough draft done by now, you can start working on final drafts. Highly recommend doing that. It takes a lot of stress off your plate versus procrastinating and doing it towards the end. Also, same for letters of recommendation, especially because these aren't necessarily your type of thing that you're procrastinating on. If you're asking someone to write a recommendation for you, always give them at minimum 2 weeks. I like to say at least 3 to 4 weeks because your recommender is very busy as well. So do keep that in mind if you want them to write a really good recommendation for you and really put that thought and time into it. Give them ample amount of time and always thank them for that process. I know that Lots of times recommenders take time out of their normal 9 to 5 workday. They're maybe doing it after hours just to write that for you. And they may know you really well, but it still helps a lot to have some sort of resume for them so they can pull information about things you're doing outside of how they know you as a student or as maybe a worker or anything like that. So these are very, very important to know. And with that, I'm going to hand it on over to my next colleague to talk about the next months.
Thanks, Taylor. So before we get on to kind of the next months in your senior year, I am tasked with sharing with you some do's and don'ts when it's come to writing your college essay. And once again, this is Nian from the University of New Hampshire. So here are some helpful guidelines and tips to help you prepare for your college essays. As I know, that's one of the components of the college application process that keep a lot of you up at night. So first off, I like to remind students that the essay is really a personal statement, right? So whichever the topic that you want to write on, make sure that is personal, right? So share things we don't necessarily know about you through other part of the application. So highlight strength and values that are more subjective, right? So resiliencies are a good example that I often share with students, curiosity, hard work, the goals are really for you to tell your story, to show us those values, those strengths, what make you you, right? And frankly, how college can help you achieve your goal and vice versa. Have different version with different length for your essays is another tips that we offer. That way you can kind of see what worked best. I know the Common App allow up to 650 words for the main essay requirement. While many of the school will have supplemental essay requirement, and those tend to, typically cap around 250 to 300 words. So keep an eye on that. As you create different drafts, save them, right? And then edit them to fit those requirements. But this will also give you an easier time starting on different essay requirement down the road as well. A lot of you will find that, scholarship application will also require essay, as I mentioned, supplemental, maybe application to a certain college or university honor program, and so on. So speaking of supplemental essay requirement, make sure you do your research, okay? So go to the school admission website, go to that specific program or that major website, look at the mission statement, the research, and then build your writing around those values and, show that how you can offer those qualities and therefore be a good fit for that school and that program, and vice versa, right? Like what you're gonna get out of it and how the school and the program can help you achieve your goal. Another thing that I strongly encourage students to think about when writing your essays is content and form. So what do I mean by that? We want to know your story, of course, but also know that you can write that story. So grammars, sentence structure, word usage, right? One tip for you is using active voice. And so basically, using verb when constructing your sentence is more commanding, more powerful, greater impact. And of course, edit is a huge tip that we have for students, really leaving that time to edit your essay and all the different drafts. Make sure that you give yourself enough time to have your draft looked over by maybe, one or two people, whether it's your English teacher, your tutor, so on and so forth. And I also recommend that you read it out loud to yourself. Okay, there's a lot that we pick up when we read it out loud to ourselves and hearing it versus, reading it silently or reading it in your head. So that's another tip that I strongly encourage you to spend the time on doing. And then last but not least, when in doubt, or you have questions, reach out to the admission counselor. We are here to help you, to support you through this journey. So reach out, let us know how we can help, make sure that you got that essays the way that it should be and fit the prompt that the school is looking for. So with the do, of course, come the don'ts as well. So here are some don'ts that we, strongly encourage you to kind of pay attention to when writing your essay. Again, it's your personal statement, not your mom's, not anyone else, personal statement. So get help with editing your essay, but make sure that you retain that authentic voice and your writing style. Speaking of being authentic, don't just write your essay on things that you think we want to hear, okay? That won't help you stand out, that won't make you unique, and we won't get a sense of who you are, which really, again, the main point of the essay, right? Allowing admission counselor to know a little about who you are and how you can be a good fit for us and how we could be a good fit for you. The third bullet on this list is truly a classic. Every so often I would come across, essay that have different colleges' name on it or things that, don't really exist at the University of New Hampshire. I know my colleague here have all come across those every cycle that we work, with students and seeing on their essay. And well, let's just say it's not a good look, okay? Might not be a deal breaker, but definitely a red flag. And keep in mind that the General Common App essay will go to every score that you apply to. So make sure you proceed accordingly. And as you put together your essay, you will go through several drafts. So don't stress about the word count just yet. The editing process will help you take care of that requirement down the road. Just write, just really, get that story down and get that process started as a senior. Certainly, if there's any, junior in the room or rising junior, the summer before your senior year is a great time to get those drafts started. Let's see what else. When you file the application, whether it's the Common App, Coalition, or those school-specific one, the prompt will be listed on the application itself when we read it. So there's really no need to repeat the prompt in your essay. That will save you a good number of words. And then use spell check, but don't rely solely on it. Okay, I remember a student who, this is a while back, but it's really, the story quite stuck with me for quite a while now. He was a captain of his football team, of course, writing about like leadership, all of that. But in his essay, he wrote caption, okay? Yes, caption of the football team as in like closed captioning. Well, let's just say that spell check did not pick up that error because he did spell caption correctly. The word usage, not so much. So make sure you, again, taking the time to edit, having someone else look over some of your final draft and paying attention to your word usage. Let's see what else. Speaking of word usage, don't use the thesaurus on every single word. It will make your essay sound really weird and kind of robotic and frankly, really difficult to read. We will pick it up right away. We'll know that you are using some sort of, thesaurus, a dictionary, or like one of the word recommendation. And it's just, it's make it very awkward when it comes to like the flow and how your essay read. So, use it occasionally if you feel the need to, but again, having that authentic voice and really telling us who you are is much more important. And then lastly, if the school asks for supplemental essay, we want to see it. So follow direction and do it. And that's a good advice across the board, not just with essay writing. All right, so with that, I think this is my last slide and it's on the timeline. So October, November is a really, really busy time for your senior year. This is where you will get that, application process started, right? And one recommendation that I have for students, and this is a really important one as you apply to different colleges and university, is to stay organized. And one way to do so is to create a spreadsheet, okay? I have an example. If that's something you're interested in, shoot me an email, ask me afterward, happy to send along an example, but a quick Google search will give you a lot of different examples on spreadsheet to track your application. This way, you can stay on top of the deadline, the requirement. Is it test optional? Are they test blind? Is it, mandatory that you submit your test score for a certain program? What are the, scholarship associated with it? all those different information. Things gonna all blend together. So having that spreadsheet will keep everything straight and clear for you as you go through the different application process for different school. And as I mentioned earlier, we're here to help you through this process. So reach out to the admission counselor of the colleges and university that you're applying to. Shoot us an email, come visit us when we're on your campus. Connect with us, College Fair. We would love to help you through this process. So don't hesitate to ask for help as you need. The second thing also very important is submitting the FAFSA, which is the free application for student aid. It have gotten much easier over the year with the FAFSA form, but it still takes time. So make sure that you spend some time to work on it. The FAFSA become available or go live every year on October 1st, and each school will have a different deadline for when you need to submit your FAFSA to the school. And then another tip that I have on that is, a lot of colleges and university, their financial aid office will, help you if you have any question on when you're filling out the FAFSA. So again, reach out to either the financial aid office directly or your admission counselor, and we will be more than happy to connect you to the right resources. And then last but not least, free money. So apply for some scholarship. There's a lot of scholarship opportunity out there. So make sure that you spend some time in October and November looking at scholarship opportunity and what are the deadlines, okay? So a lot of them will have deadline earlier on the year. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, requirements such as essay and letter of recommendation. So again, making sure that you checking all these opportunity, maybe create a separate spreadsheet for the scholarship and when you need to apply for them, what do you need to apply for them, and then of course using the connection that you have, whether it's your family or your counselor, maybe your parents' company or employer have scholarship opportunity for their employee children, maybe belong to the Boys and Girls Club at your local town, city. They have scholarship for students as well. Churches, your own employee, if you're having a part-time job, they might have some opportunity through that. So check those, ask around, and make sure you don't miss out on any free money and the opportunity to come with it. And then at the bottom of this slide, you will see the deadline. These are application deadline for each of our presenter institution. And so early decision are the one that are binding. So if you apply early decision, that's kind of the score that you would need to commit to. And then early action is non-binding. There might be some advantage to that, and that varies by the school. And then pretty much every university will have a regular decision deadline. And again, as you can see, there's quite variation on the date. So a spreadsheet will kind of help you keep everything straight and organized. So with that, I will pass it on to my colleague, Ryan, to take you out on the rest of the year.
Hello again and good morning. I am Ryan Wegerson from Cal Poly, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the timeline from December through April and beyond. So, really having an action plan for those applications and deadlines. One thing that a lot of students miss is that after you apply to a university or institution, oftentimes they're going to start communicating with you through a portal. So you really want to make sure that you are checking your email and making sure that you are setting up the portals if the universities you've applied to have those, because that's often where they're going to communicate your admissions decision or any missing documents that you might have. So definitely be checking in with the admissions counselors for any school that you've applied to find out how you can stay up to date on your application status. And again, really important that you check for missing documents, because it's really an awful feeling to find out later in the season that your application was never completed and that you never got that notification. So definitely stay on top of it. As an applicant, it's really your responsibility to make sure that you know where to find this information. And definitely, if you've got a school on your list that has rolling admissions, make sure that you're reaching out to that counselor to find out when is an ideal time to apply for that school in the rolling admissions process. Some other things you'll want to keep in mind are what are the financial aid and scholarship deadlines. So if the school that you're applying to has specific deadlines to apply for their financial aid or for their scholarships, foundational or what may be, make sure that you are keeping up to date with that. Every campus is going to have their own deadlines for these sorts of things. So again, like Nian mentioned, it's really good advice to have a spreadsheet where you're listing all of the colleges that you've applied to and making sure that you're entering in any of these sorts of deadlines so that you're not kind of caught unaware and missed something. It's also really important that if you didn't complete the FAFSA in October or November, that you definitely get it done, in this time frame between as early as possible. So December would be fantastic to have that done. Many students think, oh, I'm probably not going to qualify for financial aid, so it's not worth it for me to apply to the FAFSA. But what you find is that some schools can only really award scholarships to students who have that FAFSA information on file. So definitely check in on that. If you are feeling like you don't need to complete the FAFSA, check in with each of those schools and ensure that it's not required in order to receive some of that financial aid and scholarship money. The last thing on this list is just make sure if the school has already admitted you maybe at this time period between December through April, make sure that you understand those early deposit deadlines. Again, each campus is going to have different deadlines and different rules for these sorts of things. So definitely check in with each campus during this time period. Again, reviewing financial aid and making a decision. So between the December through April time period, you're going to start hearing from colleges about your admissions status. And during this time, you will be able to see how much money they're able to offer you, either through the FAFSA or through scholarships and merit awards that come from that school. So take the time to review your financial offer. Sometimes schools will allow you to appeal that offer. Sometimes you're not getting enough money to, to really make it affordable for you to go to that school. It really doesn't hurt to ask. So definitely ask if you can appeal the financial aid offer. Is there any other award money they can give you? I know, especially during COVID, a lot of families really experienced a change in their income. Maybe one parent lost a job or their hours were cut or something like that happened. When that happens, oftentimes there's a special appeal that you can submit to the financial aid office to let them know that your situation has changed in this last year, and that may impact how much financial aid that you're able to receive. So definitely don't be afraid to ask the school about that financial aid appeal process. A lot of students will wait until they've been admitted to a school, especially if it's out of state, to really, visit that campus and get a feel for it. So many times students will go in the spring or in, the late winter to kind of either get their first look or a last look at the school or campuses where they've been admitted to. One thing to keep in mind is that this is the most popular time for students to visit campuses, especially during the spring break period or during open houses and things like that. So you'll want to register as early as possible to make sure that you are able to secure a spot for either that visit or that open house. In the spring, you're also competing with juniors who are going to be rising seniors the next year, who are also visiting these campuses. So oftentimes schools will have separate tours or separate info sessions for students who are, still looking or who are admitted. So make sure you're aware of all of your options and definitely register early for those visits. While you're visiting campus, make sure to reach out to the admissions office or any other university staff, like professors who are in the major program that you're interested in. They might be able to help answer any last minute questions you have about the school, anything that you're really worried about, or they might really help you to get excited about the programs available at that school. Another tip is to reach out to current students. So you may know a neighbor or a family friend who is currently going to that school. It's a great idea to reach out to them, especially if you're visiting and they can give you a private tour. That's a really, really good thing to do. And if you don't know anybody who currently goes to the school, oftentimes if you reach out to your admissions counselor for that university, they may be able to connect you with the current student, maybe even in your field of study, who can really help to give you a better understanding and perspective about what life is like for current students in that university and even studying in the major that you're interested in. You should also just talk with your college counselor and your family about what your goals are. If you're still making that decision, it's a really good idea to talk about what are the things that are important to you and get their advice, but also just know that this is your decision and this is ultimately going to be your life. So take some of their advice, but also know that this is really important decision for you to make as an up and coming adult. And so it's good to kind of get all of those different perspectives. Last but not least, one thing that is really helpful to some students is to join the university social media pages. Not only are you going to hear, reminders about deadlines or different events that are happening, but you can also meet future classmates. And so that can really give you a feel about what the campus culture will be like for you. You might already have support systems built in if you make some friends through the social media pages. And for some students, it really helps them to find roommates as well. I know that that's a big thing at Cal Poly. A lot of students find their roommates by being on those social media pages. And it helps you to get to know where you're going to be calling home. It's also important to note that the deadline for you to notify schools of whether you're coming or not is usually on May 1st. And that's also typically when students or schools that require a deposit for accepting that offer of admission, that's usually the deadline for those schools as well. So definitely keep in mind that by May 1st, you should have a really good idea of where you plan to go. May through August is a super exciting time. You've already made your decision about where you want to go, and you're starting with the onboarding process. So the first thing you want to do is mark your calendar for orientation and move-in day. Oftentimes you're going to the campus for orientation, and of course move-in is going to require a lot of logistics. So definitely do yourself and your parent supporters a favor and make sure that they're aware of those dates, because sometimes there's flights or days off that have to be planned around, and so definitely get those on the calendar as soon as they're available. And also really important, again, utilize us as admissions counselors in this time period. Yes, the application process is already over. You've chosen your spot to be at, but we can also be super helpful for you in the next steps process. Making sure that, if final transcripts are required, that the deadlines for those, or if you're sending your test scores in for AP or IB or college transcripts, that you understand that evaluation process, that when the housing deadlines are and what your options are, setting up your campus email account if that's available to you at that school at that time period. And one of the things that's become a lot more common as schools are becoming test-free or test optional is that students are often having to take math placement or English placement exams in order to get into the courses required for their major curriculum. So don't be surprised if you haven't taken the ACT or SAT, or if you haven't done well on those exams. You may have to take a math placement exam early in the summer prior to coming in. So be prepared for that. And also just know what the process is like for registering for classes in the fall. Some universities will block schedule you into your fall quarter classes to make sure that you get the classes you need. And some of them require that you register yourself. all of them should be providing you with access to an academic advisor who can help you with that process and knowing which classes that you are going to need. So definitely find out about, those advising meetings, what courses will be available, what a window of time is for you to register for those classes. It's really important to know that during this time period. Also, not required, but something to consider. Maybe you want to get a summer job next year if you don't already have one. This will really help you to pay for some of the extra expenses that come with, going to college, or having some extra money set aside so that you can do some fun things that maybe you haven't budgeted for earlier. And again, this is super important. Universities know you're being bombarded with emails all the time, but please make sure, even in the summer, when you already know where you're going, make sure that you check your email frequently. That is generally the primary way that universities are going to communicate with you. And if there's an issue that comes up, please check your email so that you know about it sooner rather than later. That can be a real heartbreak at some point. So check that email. It's super important. And number one, get excited. It can be really overwhelming to think about, oh my gosh, I'm leaving my home, I'm going to a new campus, I'm going to be living with totally different people. Suddenly you're going to have this really tough curriculum. And so just be excited. It's such a fun time. College is really exciting. You're going to meet so many new people and you're going to grow in ways that you never imagined. So just remember to keep that excitement all throughout May through August. And now, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. We will go ahead and answer those at the very end. And in the meantime, while you're getting those questions in the chat, each one of us is going to talk a little bit about the universities that we work for.
All right, so we'll first start with the University of Nevada, Reno, which we're still staying on the West Coast. So Reno, Nevada is 45 minutes from Lake Tahoe. We're really close to the Nevada-California border, only about a 2-hour drive from the California capital, Sacramento. We are a large tier 1 research institution. And so we have about 22,000 students on campus, still maintain a 16:1 student to faculty ratio. So your classes still can be small. We have a wide variety of things you can do on campus because we are pretty big. We have about 250 different clubs and organizations. We do have a study abroad program. We have an honors college on campus. We have first generation programs, and we are a Division I athletic school. We are part of the Mountain West Conference. I'm not sure if we have any Wolfpack fans in the house, but we have 3 players who are in the football teams this year. I'm really excited to watch them play on the team, so I'm really happy about that. And we have 145 different academic programs. You do not have to apply separately to them as long as you are admitted to the university. You can study whatever you want. And we are a part of the Western Undergraduate Exchange. You qualify, a great way to save about $12,700 on tuition per year for 4 years. We're close on time, so I'm going to hand it on over to the next representative.
Hi again, everyone. Joe Johnson here, he, him, Associate Director of Admission, Pacific Northwest region at Lawrence University. We're a small liberal arts college in the Midwest, so we're taking a couple flights, usually connecting through Minneapolis or Denver, out to the Midwest, Appleton, Wisconsin, right near the shores of Lake Michigan. We have 1,500 students, by design, small liberal arts college, and we're also a conservatory of music. So for any musicians in the room who are looking to continue playing at a really high level, whether or not you want to be a music major, we have some incredible music opportunities and resources for our students. Some of the things that make Lawrence special, we have an 8:1 student faculty ratio. That is one of the lowest in the nation. Just to give you a sense of that type of one-on-one connection that you're going to get with professors. And over 60% of our courses are actually just one student and one professor. So if you're looking for a school where you're going to be able to create your own classes with professors, do one-on-one research while you're an undergraduate, and not have to compete with graduate students for those opportunities, Lawrence could be a really, really good fit for you. We're located in Appleton, which is a small town of about 75,000, larger metro population of 250,000. So we're not in farmlands. We're not in cornfields. That is the stereotype for the Midwest and for Wisconsin, but half hour north and you will find some cows. 98% of our students receive financial assistance. So even though we're a small private college, we are not inaccessible for students. In fact, only about 30% of our students are from Wisconsin. The vast majority are from all over the US and come to us from over 50 countries around the world. We're a Division III athletics institution, and there's so much to do, from the arts on campus to taking advantage of the natural scenery of the Midwest and Wisconsin. And I hope that you'll take some time to come visit us or meet with me when I'm in your area. Pass it off to who's next? Ryan.
It's me. Hi, everybody. Again, my name is Ryan Wegerson. I'm the Regional Admissions Manager for Cal Poly. Please take a screenshot if you are interested in contacting me. I've got my email, phone number, and my Calendly link if you'd like to set up a Zoom appointment. Cal Poly is located on the central coast of California, which is absolutely beautiful. And it's in a college town, very true college town. So much of the population is really made up of those college students. It's a fantastic place to do outdoor recreational activities such as surfing, kayaking, rock climbing, and the weather is pretty perfect year round. We have really small class sizes, about an average of 32, not as small as Lawrence, but definitely pretty small for a state institution. And what really draws students to us is the learn by doing philosophy. So students in every single major on campus are going to have the opportunity to do project-based learning, work with their hands, and to really get that experience before they graduate. And because you have to apply to a specific major when you are applying to Cal Poly, you really start working on that subject right away, your first quarter on campus. And one of the things that's really fantastic about Cal Poly and the CSU system in general is that our mission is really to provide opportunities and experiences to undergraduate students. We don't have PhD programs on campus, so you don't have student teachers, and you have a lot more opportunities to get internships and do research programs. So definitely contact me if you want any help on your application this year. Definitely set up an appointment to meet me. And now I'm going to pass it on to my colleague, Nian.
Thanks, Ryan. Hi, everybody. This is Nian, and I am your admission counselor from the University of New Hampshire. So UNH is a public flagship Tier 1 research institution in the Northeast. Very excited to represent New England here. So there's really no limit to, why Washingtonian or folks from Oregon who choose to come to the University of New Hampshire. But for today, I would like to highlight kind of the 3 big reasons for you, and have to do with our location, the connection, and the community that we have here at Wildcat Country, and then, of course, most importantly, the academics. So we are in Durham, New Hampshire, which is a charming, traditional college town, an hour north of Boston. We're about an hour and a half from the majestic White Mountains, and of course, a short 20-minute from the Atlantic Ocean. So we got a little bit of everything. You would fly to Boston Logan, which is a biggest airport in New England. So very easy direct flight from SeaTac or Portland to Boston. And then we have the largest transportation system in the state of New Hampshire. And don't worry, we'll get you anywhere that you need to go. We are a community of around 13,000 undergraduate students, so making us a mid-sized institution. So what that means for you is that we are big enough to give you all that resources, that opportunities, school spirit, Division I athletics, all the things that come with being a larger university, but at the same time still be able to maintain that more intimate and personal connection to your faculty as well as your classmates. And then last but not least, we have over 150 different majors for you to choose from. I'm talking business, engineering, computer science, nursing, occupational therapy, liberal art, that include like psychology, political science, to all the pre-law, and the life sciences, right? Like we're really well known for marine biology, equine studies, a really unique program at UNH, as well as genetics. We also welcome undeclared student to apply to UNH. So if you have a lot of different interests, or if you're not sure what you want to study, that's okay. Go undeclared. You can undeclare. You can be undeclared in general or within a specific college at UNH. Everything is test optional. We are a test optional institution, and everything is direct entry, including nursing. And then just a quick plug, because it's something that I'm really passionate about. UNH offer over 400 different courses that have sustainability component in them, as we are ranked top 5 in the country when it's come to sustainability performance. So if you are ready to make a difference in the world while going on an adventure in the beautiful New Hampshire, we're certainly ready for you. So let's connect. I would love to hear from you. Thanks.
All right. Thank you everyone for joining us. We answered a couple of questions in the chat. If you have any further questions that you think of later, definitely feel free to reach out to any of us. We'd be happy to answer your questions. And thank you so much for joining us. This recording will be up on the Arrow website in the next week or so. So if you missed part of it and want to look back, we will have it available for you. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye, everybody.